And pivotal rulings really setting the stage for Alec Baldwin's trial next month. Here with us is trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris. Misty, great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why do you think the judge declined the prosecutor's immunity request for Hannah Gutierrez?
So Hannah Gutierrez Reed and her attorneys had also objected to that immunity request because it's what's called use immunity, meaning she would only have immunity relating to what she testified to at Alec Baldwin's trial. And her team, her lawyers said, well, regardless of whether or not she has this limited immunity, it could always impact her appeal. And if her appeal is successful, her potential new trial moving forward. So from a defense perspective, if you're her lawyer, you're going to object to that because you don't want her having testimony under oath that could potentially be problematic down the road in her next steps in her case.
I am curious here, Misty, what could her testimony possibly look like since she doesn't have those protections you just mentioned?
Well, I think it'll be a lot of Fifth Amendment. Fifth Amendment right against self-determination. I cannot answer that question because, again, the judge ruled that she cannot be compelled to testify. That means that the prosecutors can't put her on the stand and make her answer questions if she raises her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And again, her lawyers are going to tell her to use that as much as humanly possible because it protects her down the road. Now, what could happen is prosecutors could put her on the stand, and then on a question-by-question basis, the judge could make a determination about whether or not that implicates a Fifth Amendment privilege, the particular question, or whether it's outside the scope. So the Fifth Amendment doesn't mean that you can't answer any questions. It just means you can't answer questions that would incriminate you. Now, in a case like this, that would be almost anything and everything relating to her position and work on that set. So I doubt she'll be answering any questions on the stand.
In Nancy Liu's piece, she mentioned that the judge sided with the prosecution when it came to admitting testimony from a potential key witness that boom operator who allegedly saw Baldwin pull the trigger. Why is his testimony now so important?
So he's going to be an eyewitness to talk about what he observed, and specifically what he observed Alec Baldwin handling the gun in moments before this happened, that he pulled the trigger. A central component to the defense argument is that he never pulled the trigger and the gun could have malfunctioned, that the gun somehow went off without the trigger being pulled. Because that's a central issue, if there's an eyewitness who says that he saw Alec Baldwin pull the trigger, of course that's going to be relevant. That, in addition to what they said is about 10 days worth of videotape that shows Alec Baldwin acting recklessly on set. So essentially, it's another person to implicate Alec Baldwin in his actions specifically with the gun. Now, I'll say we've never heard of this before, right? We watched a whole other trial with Hannah Gutierrez Reed, and this witness was not somebody who testified at that point. So whether or not the defense is able to undercut that, what exactly did you see? Where were you standing? What angle were you at? How could you see him pull the trigger? Those will be a lot of the questions you'll hear on cross-examination.
The judge is also declining to dismiss the case after the defense said law enforcement mishandled evidence. Could that detail still play out in the trial, even though this case was not dismissed, Misty?
It is going to be a huge part of the trial. So first of all, the case was not dismissed on the grounds that basically the defense argued that the evidence doesn't support what the charges the prosecution brought. Because Alec Baldwin, they're not alleging that Alec Baldwin had any subjective knowledge that a live bullet was in the gun. It's insufficient. That motion was denied. The motion relating to the FBI actually destroying the gun at issue during testing. Therefore, the defense never had the opportunity to do independent testing on their own. That's overly prejudicial. That motion is actually slotted for next week. Regardless of the outcome, if it is denied, all of this will be very, very relevant at trial because the defense is going to stand there and say, well, that's a nice story the prosecution's telling you, but guess what? There is no gun. And guess who destroyed the gun? Them. And so that whole argument is going to play into raising reasonable doubt at the end of the day. So that gun, the central piece of evidence of the case, and the fact that it no longer exists in the form that it was on that day, that's going to be a huge part of what the defense raises in order to establish reasonable doubt.
Misty, as I'm following this case, it gets a bit more complicated, but you do an amazing job explaining it to me and our viewers. Misty Marris, thank you.
Thank you.